Welcome everyone to Alcoholically Correct. I am JB. I'm joined today and always by
Zach, here to tell you what you're wrong about today.
Always appreciate that, Zach. Great opening.
Yeah.
How's the week
perfect.
been?
Go ahead. It's been a week. It's been a week. I mean, I'm still technically jobless, but
No, go ahead. Go back to insulting me. Why is it perfect? Tell me what I'm wrong about today.
I mean, it's normal. Like, that's kind of every day when we chat.
Fair enough. Speaking about what I'm wrong about, you always like to make fun of my drinks. What you sipping on over there?
So today I'm starting with La Fin du Monde.
Nice, okay.
A little 9% ale. It's really good. It's almost bubbly like a champagne. So I actually have a dent in my ceiling from when I opened the bottle. But that's all right. It happened off camera, luckily.
I was gonna say, tell me you got that on camera. Damn.
No, sir.
Damn. That's all right.
And then my follow-up beer, of course, because that's not going to be enough, is going to be Arrogant Bastard Ale.
They named a beer after you.
Exactly. It's made by Stone. It's made by Stone, and it's a great beer.
So with the first one there, where's that from?
La Fin du Monde, it's a Belgian ale.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm assuming it's from Belgium, but I actually don't know that for sure.
It'd be weird if it was a Belgian ale that didn't at least originate from Belgium in some way.
Yeah, it was bottled and brewed by Unibro in Chambly, Quebec, Canada. So,
oh, wow.
Not Belgium.
Not Belgium, no. But I'm sure some of the money goes back to Belgium or something. It's legit, I'm sure. I stayed a little closer to home, actually. I went with the Reef Donkey from the Tampa Bay Brewing Company. It's good. It's got, like, some nice flavor to it, but you know me, I like my lighter, ales. So I like the fact that it's not too dark, not too heavy. And then backup beer, I just got a Yingling. I went super basic today, so.
Nice. All right. So, what are we going to be starting with today? Should we do a shot first?
Oh, well, we have to do a shot first. What you sipping on for your shot? Or what you shooting on, I should say.
Still vodka. Just
nice.
Vodka.
Yeah, I'm still sticking with the rum. I will get more adventurous as, the shows go on, so to speak, and try more things. But as I stated in the first episode, I don't really go out any more than I have to. I have a bottle of rum. I drink a bottle of rum.
Yes. Yeah, I've got vodka. I drink vodka.
Nice.
It's also just easy and an easy shooter. And I don't really want to shoot any of my good stuff because that just is a bad call.
Yeah, I mean, don't waste it on this silly little show. Why would you want to waste anything good on... No.
It's a great question.
That's true. That's actually
a great question.
Thus, I'm sipping on basic rum and you're sipping on basic vodka. Speaking of which, let's shoot them.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, we really wanted to start talking about the mainstream media, right?
Right. Yes. Yep. Yeah, we kind of approached this maybe saying media bias, mainstream media. What should the overall idea be? And we thought everyone understands the concept of mainstream media. Let's delve into where that came from and kind of where the bias and all that lies. What it's doing to us and what we can do type thing, right? I think.
Yeah, kind of how it's affecting us, how it's still affecting us to this day, even though, nobody thinks of mainstream media as, something that average day people watch per se.
Right. Well, that would be my main point. And I know we've somewhat, obviously we know each other outside of the show. I know we've touched on the idea that I'm not on a mainstream that I know of at all. I'm YouTube and through social media, I will follow leads. I will not just see something and decide, oh wow, that's the new fact of the day. But I'll see something and then I'll start looking into it. But I'm never looking to one source of media for information. So I don't know that mainstream media is exactly relevant into the next decade or two. I know you don't fully agree with that though, right?
Of course, no. But before we get into what we're talking about today, I want to bring you back. I want to take us back in time and have a little bit of a history lesson for you, because not everyone knows how media evolved into what it is today. So we're going to go way, way back till before 1927. So
back when our radios had those big like cornucopia looking things that would play the music out of it. Wasn't even a radio, right? It was like the record player.
Yeah, that's not a radio at all. It had no sort of transmission.
Did it not have any kind of transmission?
No, that was a phonogram, I think it's called. I don't remember what the name is, but it's basically just played the disc that you put in.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like
we start the show off saying I'm going to be wrong about stuff, so
Yeah,
I gotta
don't worry. Yeah, you definitely are doing it. No, first radios were little ones that were like blocky with the big antenna ears.
Sure.
Not the TVs, not the one with the screens. That was a TV. This is the radio.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so basically, we're going to go back to that time. So 1927. Right. So the issue is before 1927, people could broadcast whatever they wanted on whatever channel that they wanted without any regard for anybody else.
Right.
And in 1927, we were like, all right, so people are just broadcasting over each other. They're not actually letting the stuff like go. So we made the airwaves public property, basically, with the Radio Act of 1927, and we also introduced the Federal Radio Commission. So that was 1927, and these guys basically said, hey, you know what? You get this amount of space on the band, like you get 99.3 FM, except they only had AM back then, but you get this particular band, and that's yours. And you know what? You also legally have to broadcast the name of your station. This way, you have to
broadcast the name of so you have to brand it, basically.
Every hour on the top of the hour or whatever, you always hear WKTV or something like that.
Yeah.
On public airwaves, they have to say who they are and which tower they're coming from. That's how they identify themselves. So this way, if somebody is overpowering someone else and they're not supposed to be, they know who to trace it back to.
Fair enough. That's interesting.
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Is that and that's still that way to this day, or that they have to? Well, I guess that's why they still have to announce their.
They have to self-announce it.
Radio. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of what they did, and this way they could track down rogue stations. Now, what they also did is, so that was kind of where it started, and then 1934 rolled around. We introduced this
5 years later. 27 or 29?
1927 to 1934.
So 8 years. Yeah. Can I do math? 7 years later?
Yeah, 7 years. That'd be correct. I was just going to let you keep going on that one. Do we need to do a basic cognitive test? I'm just curious.
Let me see. It's person, place, thing. Damn it, I messed it up. No, I
correct. No, the correct one was you're going to go computer, keyboard, beer. You point out the objects that are in front of you.
5 things, right? And then you have to be able to name them later, which with the amount that we drink during the show, I may not be able to. So kudos to our president if he can, because, I might be too angry.
All right. So 1934, I'm going to start speeding us through here. 1934, the only reason it's important is 2 different things. We made a Communications Act. In the Communications Act, we introduced this thing called the Equal Time Rule. The Equal Time Rule says that if I get to talk about this particular political item on this particular viewpoint, I have to provide equal amount of time on the other rule, basically. I have to provide equal time for both sides. Mm-hmm. At least for political opinions and political pieces. And then that was 1934, and it also renamed the Federal Radio Commission with our favorite, the FCC.
Nice. I was wondering when you said Federal Radio Commission, I was like, that does not sound like FCC to me.
Yeah, no, it is not the FCC, but now we have the FCC. Basically, what we also next is going to be in 1941. So we had this thing called the Mayflower Decision. It's important. It basically decided that, not only do they have to provide equal time, we also care about, public interest because it's publicly owned radio waves. So you have to remain neutral in reporting news. So in news and politics, you have to be neutral. You're not allowed to give editorial support to any particular political position or candidate, which was awesome.
You couldn't. So what are we saying? The 1940s. So let's say FDR. You couldn't sit there and be like, if FDR isn't reelected, the world's going to end with blah blah blah. Like you weren't allowed to do that on the radio, right? Is what I'm hearing.
It's on public
as a news station, right? On public,
correct. On news,
yeah, right.
Correct.
Right.
News is not allowed to be editorialized.
And this was what year?
1941, it was the Mayflower decision. Following that up in 1949, they kind of threw out the Mayflower decision and made it a little bit more verbose in this thing called the Fairness Doctrine. And the Equal Time Doctrine, which said, hey, you have to provide equal time for both political opponents, was actually was amended to actually even offer this thing called the Most Favored Advertiser. So basically, if I were a political candidate and I wanted to, have my thing on the air, I actually get the rate for my advertisement. I get the rate of their best rate. So if they were providing like Coca-Cola an advertising slot for $100 a minute or something, then they have to provide that to me, even though their normal rate is $250 a minute. And that was just that was the Equal Time Doctrine. And Fairness Doctrine was saying, hey, you can't do things. And so that was kind of 1949. And then they finalized it in paperwork 1959. They put it in as a general amendment to their whole thing. And 1969, they got sued for it because the Red Lion Broadcasting Company was like, whoa. I want to be able to editorialize it and say what I want about this. That's my right. And FCC and the Supreme Court was like, actually, the FCC, these are public airwaves. They're not just free amendment stuff. You get to, the FCC actually has control of the airwaves. You don't really get to say whatever you want.
Fair enough.
However, the Supreme Court did make a distinct ruling as well. They also said that while the FCC has the right to do it, they're actually obligated to do that. They're not. They don't have to do this. They don't have to enforce this rule. And so we roll up to 1987. In 1987, the FCC is like, nah, we don't need the Fairness Doctrine anymore. We're good. News can be editorialized. So
awesome. And so ever since then, so that's why everyone hearing this is like, the way he's describing these rules does not sound like any media that I've seen in my lifetime, probably, which, for most of us, 87's about lifetime. So most of us, you and me, most of the two of us sitting here.
But it's kind of interesting. So before news couldn't be editorialized, now news is allowed to be editorialized. So
interesting. And that's on any public airway. It doesn't matter what.
Well, we were only ever talking about public airwaves before. Cable news stations could do whatever they want. But anything went over public airwaves, that was TV, that went over publicly broadcasted
and
air
radio
channels.
Though, right? That's what I meant.
And
I
radio,
understood
correct.
That side of it. What I was asking about was there are still no exceptions on that this has to be...
Yeah, anything that's using public airwaves.
News only, yeah. Can be editorialized.
If you claim that you're news, you can't editorialize it.
Wait. You can or you cannot now?
Cannot editorialize it. Now you can.
At this point now. Now you can, okay.
Right. Yeah, and so in 1987 that changed. You suddenly were allowed to editorialize news.
And that's kind of what led, I would say, media-wise, that's a lot what led to where we're at. There was also something with ownership of the media, right? If I remember.
There is. We'll get to that. That's not really important yet. Basically, what it was like, hey, you can't actually own all the media stations in the world. You can't like own an entire broadcasting area inside of like, I couldn't own all of Central Florida's news stations as a company.
Fair, okay.
Everyone had to be able to provide competing news stations.
So you could get multiple viewpoints. And I would assume doubly important after 1987 because... If you can editorialize and you own everything, then you can propagandize all the news.
That is correct, yes. So, and it also included the fact that you can't really own a newspaper and a radio station and a TV station in an area. You had to. There was segregation that had to be done.
Right.
So 1996. But
you were saying, but you felt like that wasn't really connected. So it felt like there was a point you wanted to make after the change in 1987. I didn't want to throw you off course. I know you're about to say 1996, but
yeah, 1987 again. The Fairness Doctrine, we ditched it, so now you could editorialize, but you still had to have competing companies in an area, and across the news media. So that was still there. Yeah,
right.
So that was still there. 1996 rolls around, which is the next major thing, and we add the Telecommunications Act. This basically said that, hey, you know what? The internet is underneath the FCC. The internet is part of the FCC. The majority of the reason is because telephone companies, you used to get dial-up back then. And with dial-up,
I remember those days.
Yeah. The dial-up, the phone companies actually, most of their lines were actually paid for by the public. So because of that, we were able to say, hey, you know what? You have to share the line. So that's how like Net Zero came about, because Net Zero was able to rent the same lines that AT&T owned, because while AT&T owned them, they didn't pay for them. But it also did another thing. There was a deregulation that occurred. So with the deregulation, they now
generally, as a more conservative person, I'm pro deregulation generally. But go ahead.
Well, so when I say deregulation, it was some of the rules around monopolization were removed.
So what we were just talking about earlier that I said was doubly important. This would not fall under that general window. Please continue.
Yeah. So it kind of made it so that they're not quite as limited in terms of how many newspapers and stuff they can own. So to give you an example, in 1983, we had 50 major news networks and news media companies. So not like Fox News across the whole. We had like 50 major different players. It wasn't like Sinclair Media Company who owns all of the little mini broadcasting ones. We had 50 major ones across the United States.
Right.
Which, pretty good. Even you look at one per state, that's not bad.
Yeah.
With 1996 and the Telecommunications Acts, we were down to 10. 10 major news media companies. Yep. And in 2005, we had 6 major news media companies.
Less great than 10, which was also not great compared to 50.
And I'll be honest, I didn't look it up today for how many there are, because it was just going to make me sad, and I don't really want that.
Not to mention, depending on where you got the information, you wouldn't even know if you could trust it, because it might be owned by somebody who's trying to...
Well, I mean, it's probably... So Disney gobbled up Fox, which probably reduced that in half.
Disney... I feel like with their purchase, though, it didn't affect the news side. They only bought their entertainment.
But hold on. Well, to be fair, Fox News is classified as entertainment. So, and that's not even a joke. That's
I know. It is true. But they did not buy Fox News. I remember in the deal specifically, that was one of the things they don't own.
Okay, so that maybe is owned by Sinclair. Whatever.
Yeah, probably is.
There were 6 in 2005.
Yeah, no, it's still terrible. Well, we have a show a week. We'll have plenty of time to make fun of multiple major corporations. I'm sure Disney will get their due, but
yeah,
what I was getting at is they aren't really, I don't think they get involved with news. They don't want to be in that side of the world too much. I know they have ABC, but that's just more they wanted a TV station, I think. If I had to imagine, I should look into this before I say this, but they probably kind of left that to a team, so to speak. They were like, look, you just keep running the news. We're going to worry about everything else that ABC does.
Well, to be fair, Comcast owns NBC, so...
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bunch. So yeah, and so an FCC study that I found actually said that there was a drastic decline due to the 1996 Telecommunications Act. There was a drastic decline in the number of radio station owners, and this was even as the number of actual commercial radio stations in the U.S. was increasing. So it basically led to this thing called radio homogenization. I really hate that word. Every time I try to use that word, it's a terrible time. But radio homogenization. Basically what this just says is that...
Nailed it.
It's a special. It requires a lot of effort to get that right. So no, radio homogenization. So basically, all the radio stations are playing the exact same format across the board, just because they're all owned the same. So 2017 rolls around. We are still doing our own thing, and the FCC was like, "Hey, you know what? I actually like monopolies." So it eliminated rules about the cross ownership of TV stations and newspapers.
I'm sorry. What did you say about monopoly?
Yeah, there you go. Nice. You got a Monopoly man on your glass. It looks like you need more beer in that glass. But also... It
does. I agree.
But yeah, so FCC removed even more rules, and now you can own the newspaper and the TV station in the same area because, screw it. So now that basically is the quote-unquote mainstream media as of today that people see when they watch TV.
Right.
And so...
Well, and in fairness, though... In 2020, before we get into what I tried to bring up at the beginning of the conversation that you weren't ready for yet, as far as like, because you wanted to go over this history of what brought us here. Totally worth it, by the way. Thank you for that.
Good.
What I was going to say is, though, outside of the fact that there's the whole internet side of this and the fact that, yeah, radio stations are less regulated and monopolized at this point. But you and I are recording this show that technically anyone could stumble upon, by the way, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Go to alcoholicallycorrect.com and you can find all the ways to find us. But my point being that I do understand where that regulation, as much as what I said, I do believe that it's important that you have multiple voices able to be heard, that I also understand where even by the early 2000s and certainly by today, the internet changes the game. But on top of that, none of that affected cable either. And I would say for the last 25 years, most people I know, myself included, for the first maybe 15 of those 25, got most of their news through
so a lot of those cable channels are just rebroadcasted over the air.
Okay.
So
how so?
Well, what do you mean? So the over the air channels. So that's the public public airwaves over the air. So, antenna ears? You can still use antenna ears today and get most of those regular TV stations. No, ABC, NBC. So sure. All those that you're watching about, those news stations that you get there, are just rebroadcasted from the over-the-air network. So they basically, whatever they're broadcasting over the air, they actually have a rebroadcast version of that on cable TV. If you're watching ABC, you on cable, it could be the same.
Yeah, but I still meant, and maybe I'm wrong about this, I don't know the statistics, but I would say by the year 2000, do you not think that the majority of American households who were involved in watching news and all were either watching CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or something along the, throw in a few extra CNBC and stuff like that for people who could see the bias of whichever side and say, that's too much for me, right? And they would go to one of those, like, even Fox Business was never, at least back when I used to watch Fox, it was never as bad as just Fox News itself, right? So, like, but that's still all cable. That could all still be, even if it didn't even matter,
because at that point, all the regulations were gone by 2000 anyways, so it didn't make a difference. And again, they're just rebroadcasted. So that's the thing, is that a lot of them, the main stations that people would watch would be rebroadcasted. So yeah, and so people nowadays, the majority of people who are our age probably aren't watching TV to get their news. Right. The majority of people our age are using the internet and such to get the news, which, according to you, is not mainstream.
Well, it is not a mainstream. So if the internet is the mainstream, you have mostly, and I don't think we want to delve into what was the thing that Pi changed and all that. I can't think of his name right now, but with
Ajit Pai.
Yeah, what did he change?
Mr. Big Cup. He was trying to remove
net neutrality.
Yeah. So net neutrality has nothing to do with the news.
And that's what I was going to say. Right. So what I meant was, outside of what that may change, and we will cover any of that in a future thing, I'm sure, that the internet is kind of open ground as far as the mainstream. I have access to information from anywhere on the internet pretty equally, as much as I'm willing to search it out, as I mentioned at the beginning.
Just like people who watch Fox News have access to other channels, but they watch Fox News. I'd say that the internet is even worse in terms of mainstreamness. So again, majority of voters right now are older than us still. Sure. Our age group is not the majority of voters. So they still get their news from the traditional media and the traditional mainstream. We now get our news from the new mainstream. Like they said, the internet.
But the internet, right. But why would you call that a mainstream if it's streaming at you from so many different sources?
Because it's really not. It used to be a little bit more like that. Now, every time you go to a website, things get tailored towards what you want to see. So if you look up something, now all the algorithms, all of the algorithms, whether it's Facebook's algorithm, Google's news algorithms, ad algorithms, all of these excuse me, all of these now want to go ahead and say, hey, oh, you like this particular article? Well, here's more of this same thing. And especially YouTube, it starts force feeding you what you already know. So it becomes a giant actually echo chamber for what your viewpoint is.
Interesting.
This is why you get so many conspiracy theorists who, when you start to look at what their YouTube looks like versus a normal person's YouTube, it's completely different in terms of what's being suggested. It's more conspiracy videos. And the same thing happens in news articles and Facebook. Facebook knows what you've seen in the past. So your sponsored articles that pop up are going to be based on that, towards what you've watched in the past and what you've seen in the past.
Not only that, here's another part where it's even better tailored, because they do have so many algorithms. And I'm not unaware of that, because actually one of my favorite things is that I do watch, because I always search out the truth as much as I can. I don't have kind of a political, like, I want this to be true anymore. So I always just kind of search out what's really happening, because I know that, you know, whatever you're picking up from different angles all have their angles at this point. My YouTube always seems really confused. I'll get Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson. I'll get like, I'm all over the place because I'm trying to watch everything. But I know that that's because I do watch everything. I know that if I only watched, you know, one stream of that, I would get video after video. And to your point, it's more effective, because on top of giving you the conspiracy videos that match the last conspiracy video that got you to watch, because all they care about is you clicking, right? Because they want the next ad to run and all that, and the runtime and everything.
Yep.
They're not only going to give you other conspiracy videos, they're going to give you the more popular ones that more conspiracy theorists have watched. So they are going to give you the best of the crazy, whatever it is, that makes it seem that much more convincing to someone who already is looking into believing this is true.
Yeah, and it's not just conspiracy theorists. I want to be clear. So, like you said, your YouTube has all sorts of news articles and news videos and stuff like that. You know what my YouTube has? My YouTube is just like Binging with Babish, Alton Brown, and Bon Appetit. That's all my YouTube is. It's just cooking stuff. It's just fun. I'm
Do you not watch any politics stuff? I'm confused, because I got a lot of sports stuff too. I get a lot of Colin Cowherd and First Take and stuff like that.
I'll be honest, I don't watch any political stuff on YouTube. I really don't. I go and I read out news articles. I like reading news itself and the original paper. The paper articles. I'm not a huge fan of having videos shoved into my ears and my eyes. I'd rather just read an article. It's a lot better for me. But in any case,
the irony of us having this conversation while recording a podcast /simulcast YouTube show is not lost on me. I hope it's not lost on you.
Hey now, I do listen to podcasts.
Okay,
just not political podcasts.
Yeah, who would listen to those?
I listen to some stuff on NPR, so I mean that counts.
Sure.
But yeah, no. So it's really what it is the mainstream of today is actually an echo chamber. It's worse. Yeah. So you see what you've seen in the past and what you believe already. Your predisposed notions are actually the reality that's shown to you.
Sure.
Because that's what you want to see, and that's what you want to be fed. And so if there's somebody out there who's willing to feed that to you, you're going to be fed that.
Right. And well, and who that's really dangerous for is anyone who is, and I used to fall into this category, just like I say, because I had friends like Zach and other people who disagreed with me across the board politically on different things, it always made me want to be accurate more so than defend my side. But my point is that I'm not trying to pat myself.
You used to be wrong a lot, is what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. We'll get into that in future episodes, because we'll get into some of the more political issues like universal basic income and the way we want to, implement them, or Medicare and medical cover. Like, we have a lot planned that'll show
a lot of those we agree on,
but I still disagree with you to a point, and I also believe that we've been having these conversations, as we've said, as friends for over a decade. Things have changed a lot in 10 years that now maybe I didn't realize were going to change. So maybe that's where I was wrong. I always emphasize, allow yourself to be wrong, accept that other people are wrong, like all that.
I accept that other people are wrong all the time. I'm really good at accepting that other people are wrong.
I was gonna say the key is the balance of both, but you know you're halfway there. So
right, okay, good. As long as I'm on my way.
but my point in that was that, you know, our politics have gone different. I've always looked into things, but if you are rooting for a team, I don't care what team it is. If you are a Republican that is a straight line Republican, they are the only. If you are a Democrat that is a straight line Democrat, they're the only party. Like, doesn't matter who the person is. And then you'll also, 99.9% of the time, the people in my life that are that way will still admit to you, when you are someone who kind of takes shots at both sides or whatever it may be, that both sides are terrible. There's corruption at both sides at different levels. There's all that. Okay, but here's what I'm getting at with that. My point is, you cannot accept that that is true and then blindly follow one side no matter what. And if you do that, to your point with this mainstream of the internet, it's almost like both sides of the mainstream have changed, because the mainstream used to be one source going into multiple, you know, different holes, let's say, and then people picking which hole to stand in front of. And so if I owned Fox News and I wanted a message out, I would send it to whatever Fox News gets out to, whatever that ownership goes to, and the people who choose that, you know, that messaging would listen to that. Same with MSNBC and on and on and on. What I'm getting at is, now there's not a person on the other side. There is an ideology on the other side that is pulling from everything all over the world, more information than we've ever had before. And with that, it is then slimming down to very specific information to you particularly. And so all you're getting is your own ideology if you're not actively working against this and trying to prove yourself wrong at all times. You're only getting your own ideology already, what you believe, tailored in a way that already resonates with you, the way that you are likely to consume it.
So what you just described is, you described that this is a problem for anyone who does not apply critical thinking and or the scientific method to their news. Basically, There's a reason we're taught the scientific method in like elementary school. Well, sure. Assuming you didn't go to school in Florida. But, you know,
no, hey, there's lots of other terrible states. Don't let Mississippi off the hook. Anyways, go ahead.
Don't worry. Alabama's chasing it too.
West Virginia's up. Anyways, so
right.
circling
So in any
back.
case, so the reason that you know, it's what you have to do is that you are taking something that you have a hypothesis, you have an idea. Your idea is not what you're trying to prove correct. You can't try to prove your idea correct. What you have to try to do.
You already believe it. You already believe like,
it.
if you're a Republican, you already believe that the Democrats are a secret communist organization trying to take over the country, right? Like, and I mean, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. Like, they really do believe that. I know that as a former card-carrying Republican. And so if you believe that and you think that might be true, great. Go try to prove yourself wrong is what the scientific method would tell you to do. Is that what you're saying?
So you're not trying to prove the positive. You're trying to prove the negative. So you're trying to prove the null hypothesis.
Yeah.
Basically, you're trying to say, hey, I have this distinctive small idea. Can I prove the opposite true? Like the fact that maybe the Democratic Party is not a bunch of socialist, ideologists who are trying to take over the world and with lizard people. Maybe that's not the case. Can I prove that there is even some evidence to say that that's not the case? And that's what we've stopped doing as a culture, as a nation.
And it seems to be getting more and more that way. Like it really does. It just
I'm going in on my arrogant bastard.
Nice. Most listeners of the show have thought you went in on arrogant bastard a while ago, but that's a different conversation. Anyways, what I was gonna say is, so I
it's a good look
got
for me.
into an internet debate with someone, which, you know, we told you last week, don't waste your time, but we do them anyways. by the way. Again, we'll do it in our comments as well. But I got into a political debate, and the woman got so upset, I'm not naming names or anything, about what was being said, and nobody was insulting. I mean, some from that side, because it was this whole like angle about Bill Clinton and Epstein and all this, and it was people pointing out, well, if the connection of those two is such a bother to you, you should probably also know that other people, I don't want to just make this politics. My point is, and we were all just kind of going round and round about cognitive dissonance and just the idea that you can have this issue connected to this person, like an Epstein connection, and then someone else could be connected to them, and you can totally disassociate it, and you can tell yourself that anyone who's trying to associate it is just, it's just for political gain and whatever it may be. All of that to say that when the conversation got to a point where, I don't know, apparently in my mind, they must have known they were wrong. They went through, they announced they were going to do it. I took screenshots for my own enjoyment, but they went through and deleted every comment that dissented from the messaging of their post. It didn't matter what the comment was. It didn't matter, how it was said. And they kept all the other comments, though. And some of it doesn't even make sense because some was responding to people that now the initial one's not even there. But you are at that point exposing your acceptance of being manipulated. Because you're saying, I won't even listen to other viewpoints. And I won't allow anyone else to see the other viewpoints. And the thing with that is, as I said, if I get into a political debate on my page, first of all, I'm not deleting your comment almost no matter what. Because what do I care? You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I actually hate deleting comments. I'm a huge fan of keeping them on.
I really don't think I've ever done it. I think one time I put up a faith-based comment and someone went the like, why do children get cancer route? And I thought about deleting it, and even that I thought, no, you know what? That is a true statement, regardless of, the fact that that does happen and all. And
I can't
again,
wait
like
till
you
the
said,
religion argument.
Nice. But that, like you said, I believe that deleting comments is it's so un-American for sure, right? You can't talk about freedom of speech and then be like,
so it's my turn to go ahead and share a quick story, an anecdote.
Please, yeah.
Somebody was upset that Facebook was deleting people's posts about that when they were spreading certain misinformation, right? So they were deleting
pandemic. Go ahead. Sorry.
It doesn't matter which one. It wasn't pandemic, but it was one of them. And so they were upset that Facebook was deleting it. They got very angry, and they're like, well, this violates my First Amendment rights. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. And so I went, actually, this didn't violate your First Amendment rights. You're on a private forum, and it is well within the moderator's rights to, delete that data or delete that post. And actually, my favorite part, he deleted my comment and removed me as a friend on Facebook, which I don't really care. But this is the most important part.
Remember that happened to me last week we talked about.
Yeah. But I got to send a message to him saying, hey, see, you just proved my point. You removed me from your feed. You're allowed to do this.
You're allowed to do it. Right,
You're
exactly.
allowed to do
That's a great point.
And that's not First Amendment. I don't have a First Amendment right to go yell on your page.
Fantastic.
And you just
great
proved
point.
it.
Same thing with my story as far as
the message.
I was put off by it, but I'm not going to go to the Supreme Court and say that she violated my First Amendment rights.
But my favorite part, message was left as seen. And so that's all that I needed. It's all that I needed.
There you go.
It was, yeah.
That's the thing. But what's scary for me, and again, I know it sounds like we're only coming from one political side. It does, but it's also because of what
promise
you just said.
He's a very, very large moron in a lot of ways.
We have plenty to talk about, is what he means. But
that's what I said. I don't understand.
regardless of your politics, why on earth would you not want all of the information? You come to your conclusion, but get all of the information, every viewpoint, everybody caught.
Well, don't even get all the viewpoints. Screw that. Don't even get all the viewpoints. Think for yourself and take in the facts. I don't care about other people's viewpoints. I really don't. Generate your own viewpoint on your own by looking at the actual facts and looking at the information that's presented to you. Don't look at the viewpoint. Pull the information. Come to your own conclusion.
I only agree, right? But I only agree to I only agree to a degree. Meaning, yes, that is what you should do. You, in the end, your conclusion should be based on your facts, your everything, what you took in, what you found. But I do think that taking in viewpoints is important, if for no other reason than, especially when it comes to politics and such, facts are, this is going to sound so Trumpian, facts are relative. Let me finish what I'm saying, though. Let me finish before you go off, and then you can go off while I sip on
I don't know that I can wait. I'm really holding myself back here. I'm just,
I know. What I mean is, there may be a factual accuracy to something. What something does, like a bill or a proposition, what it doesn't do, da-da-da-da. However, and we know this, and I don't care by next week, if you want me to try and find, 2 weeks from now, because we're recording next week in a few days, but if by next 2 weeks from now, you want me to come up with like 10 examples, I will. But there are things that on their head, based on the facts, might have seemed great at the time that we did them. And you might have had factual information that made it seem great. And then over time, based on people's opinions of the fallout of what those facts would then lead to, it didn't turn out great and things had to change. So what I mean by that is, and then I promise I'll go silent. I will finish this beer while you tell me why I'm wrong. But that if you at least let yourself listen, no matter how much you disagree with every viewpoint like you're doing right now, you will have more information to consider as you come up with your own conclusion about things. And it will make you think about things broader than your own. Because if you just grab the facts, Zach, I'm telling you, you can still only grab the facts that back up your claims. And then you're going to say this information is based on facts, and you're going to actually be correct. It's just not based on all the facts. And so
hold on. And this is where, hey. This is where we go back to, you're trying to prove the null hypothesis. You're trying to prove that what your viewpoint is and what your take on it is wrong. You're constantly trying to prove that. And you consistently change that fact. As new facts are brought up, you start to change your viewpoint. That's how science works. Just what is true today doesn't necessarily have to be true in a year, because new facts have surfaced. And if you want to take, this is where it does get a little murky, is that what you're talking about is secondary effects. That's not a fact. What you have is series of hypotheses and conjectures about what the future comes from this. And yeah, you do have to think about that. But that's not an opinion. You don't have to look at everyone's other viewpoint. That's not a viewpoint. That's a hypothesis that somebody is showing. There's a difference between a viewpoint. Somebody might have a viewpoint there's a difference. There's a distinct difference, right? So a conjecture is something that is based on facts. A viewpoint is something that somebody believes. If you watch a news article and you watch somebody's editorial on something, that's a viewpoint. What happens is somebody underneath has done a shit ton of research with a series of facts and figures to produce that. And that's what you should be looking at.
I get that. I do. But what I'm saying to you still is that
facts are relative.
Because there's so many variables.
No. At no point is a fact relative. That's the thing. A fact isn't relative. What is relative is what you're talking about is a conjecture. So what you're saying is things at the time look like they were going to do well based on the facts, right? And so what you're trying to do is predict the future based on facts. That's called a conjecture. A conjecture is, again, a hypothesis that can change over time. Remember, that's the whole point. So your hypothesis is that the outcome, looking at the data that we have available today, that the outcome is going to be positive. Now, as new data starts to appear and new facts start to appear, your hypothesis can be changed, right? You might not have been able to prove it wrong before, but as new data is added, then it can be changed. Reading a different viewpoint doesn't mean jack, because just because somebody says something, you have a majority of people saying this, you have another like majority 50-50. Why does it's opposing viewpoints based on the facts, and it's conjecture. What you're doing there is you're conjecturing out things. That doesn't mean those are facts. They're not relative. The facts are still facts. They are pieces of things that are immutable. No, because you're
proving my point, though. Facts are relative to the conjecture. Yes.
No.
Relative to the way they're conjectured.
Stop. No, the conjecture is relative to the facts. Your conjecture is based on the facts available to you at the time. Now, here's the thing. What do you know what is not a fact? That this plus this is going to equal this future outcome. No, it is highly likely to equal this future outcome, but the actual facts are not that this is equal to this future outcome. You cannot say a future outcome is a fact. That is a conjecture or a hypothesis.
That's what I mean by the facts are relative.
But that's not relative. That's not a fact. Okay. Because, whatever. I'm over this.
I disagree.
I'm over this. I'm taking a shot because I'm over this.
In case you're wondering, we will disagree sometimes. Wait. If we're taking a shot because you're over this, that means we're moving on to topic 2?
Correct.
Are we closing out topic 1 at that point?
I mean, what else do you have another major point?
I mean, I don't know. I felt like we still had to talk about a handful of things. I definitely wanted to talk about the way that the media covers certain things and all. I don't know. It could be kicked to future episodes as well. Again, we have to do once a week. That's a lot of content to come up with. But my point being, like, because
what is important here? Because here's the big takeaways that we've just come up with. Is that the big takeaways are, number one, there is still mainstream media in the traditional sense. It exists. It is only being consumed mostly by the voting population, which is people who are over the age of 39.
I was going to say, I basically, when we were texting about this idea, I'm going to let the audience behind the curtains to know that one of the big things that we said was, I said, well, I don't feel like the majority of people are on a mainstream. And you said the majority of voters are on a mainstream. And I said, sure, the majority of voters are, but not the majority of people. And I guess that's why I didn't want to move off this topic. Because I was going to say, because what we're trying to get to here, I think what I'm trying to get to, you can disagree with me again if you'd like. You, whoever you are, listening to this, watching this, whatever it is, nobody. But you are becoming the mainstream. You're both receiving it and you are forwarding that mainstream of information. People are literally gathering their information based on what their friends, family, whatever it may be, are sharing. And so if you find yourself sharing consistently the exact same thing, at least be skeptical. From the same people, from the same handful of people, the same information, and every single time you're like, wow, yeah, that's exactly what I think. Oh, yep, that's exactly what I believe. At least be skeptical of yourself. I don't care what the viewpoint is. And look into more facts and the relative conjecture to those facts.
Well, look into look to prove yourself wrong always. As long as you're always looking to prove yourself wrong,
right.
Even in the slightest, right? So you have this distinctive individualist idea. If you can prove even the slightest that idea might not be 100% accurate, or that the other idea, the fact that it is not this way, might have a modicum of truth behind it, you need to reevaluate everything. It doesn't matter how close it is.
Sure.
If you have to even do that, like hydrochloroquine argument, for example. I am constantly arguing about hydrochloroquine and it's not effective, right? Because I've done a shit ton of research. I have to take it. Either way, I'm arguing constantly. But every single time somebody gives me an article or produces a new study, I have to go, whoa, hold on. This is counter to my current opinion. Right. Now let me go ahead and research this particular article and see what I find inside of that article to see if maybe I am wrong. I am reevaluating every time I'm given opposing information.
Yeah.
Now, it's all wrong. And I'm saying that from a factual statistical standpoint, but that's not the point. I constantly, every article I get, I do read, because I read the underlying scientific data behind it, because that's important to know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, you know what? Constantly, if even there's a modicum of chance that you're wrong, check it out. It doesn't take much time. That's what I think that is the big takeaway, because we've stopped doing that as a nation. We've stopped.
And if I can,
across the board.
If I can add a little tagline to that, and then we'll move on to shot 2. You finish up your beer. That's perfect.
Second beer.
Nice, good for you. Well, I'm on number 2 over here. I'm working on it.
To be fair, mine are 7.2% alcohol and 9% alcohol. So, and my first one
we don't have to talk about it.
This one here is 1 pint, 9.4 fluid ounces, or 750 milliliters. So basically a bottle of wine instead of beer at 9%.
Fair enough. My point was, if I can add one more tag here while you finish that beer. Please stop sharing things with quotes or information and asking, is this true? If you have not taken 5 minutes to throw it into the search engine of your choice and open 2 to 3 articles on it. Because it really, like, I'll give you an example.
I want to throw one out real quick for your search engine. Check out DuckDuckGo. This isn't anything other than Google.
So, I was gonna say, like Kona, they are not sponsoring, is what you're trying to say.
No, and what it is DuckDuckGo doesn't do the advertising and the whole segregating your search based on what you think previously. Google does that.
Ooh, interesting.
So search on, Google will look at what you have previously searched in the past and what what you've done in the past, and even your geographic location, and uses that to make the results more relevant to you. So if you're looking for a good restaurant or something like that, use Google. It's going to do a much better job. But if you're looking for information about a topic and you want to kind of get the real results, check out DuckDuckGo. It's
interesting. I'd never even really heard of it.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that they do it, but that'll help.
No, that's what I was going to say is there, and we won't get into that this episode, but somebody had shared a Kamala Harris quote where she said, quote unquote, something about chasing down Trump voters after they take back their rightful place in the White House. Total BS thing. Never happened. It's literally fear mongering, right? And you share that quote and you go, is this true? It took me 35 seconds to find you 5 examples of things showing that there was no truth to it. On top of that, outside of this random meme that you found, you don't find anything that tells you it is true. So why it took you as much time to make that post as it would have to switch your tab, go to Google or DuckDuckGo, and find out whether or not it was true. Look into the information to some degree before you share it for no reason.
Yeah, just don't share. Unless it's our podcast, then share it. Share it like you've never shared before.
Yes.
We are not
alcoholically correct.
we would never mislead anyone.
That's right. No, well, we aren't misleading you because we've named the show in a way that lets you know that we know we're going to be full of crap sometimes and totally wrong, and you're going to call us out for it in our comments. And mostly me, according to Zach. Anyways, and we also we admit that we have our own bias and opinion. So, hey, we're telling you.
I admit my bias ahead of time. But you know what I do for every single one of these things? Every single topic I bring up, I do my best to go ahead and prove myself wrong. And I get the opposite opinion. And even on ones where me and JB disagree, I still do a very good job, JB, do I not, of presenting your opinion or your take and your side of the topic as truthfully and factually as possible in a non-biased way.
So.
And then I go ahead and tell you you're a moron and completely change the change the thing. But I do my best to try to be able to describe your topic from your viewpoint.
I don't think I'm wrong and you're right as often as that would imply, regardless of the theme of the show. But
but no, you get it. Like,
but no. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, going back to I'll just circle back to your hydroxychloroquine thing. I said that really well. I was worried as the words were coming out of my mouth.
To be fair, it's hydroxychloroquine. I always pronounce it wrong too. Hey, no. I actually pronounce it hydroxychloroquine. I found out and felt like an idiot. It's actually hydroxychloroquine. I take this drug on a daily basis, and I don't pronounce it correctly.
Just remember, yes, queen, and then you'll never forget again.
You're fine.
But to that point, I know for a fact that the way you described your information gathering is true, because I have been in the conversation with you where you will propose something. You'll be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this, and this is what that is. And then you'll look into it, and 2 hours later, you'll write me and be like, actually, here's where I was wrong, and you'll explain what you found out. So I know for a fact that you are out there searching for that information. And I would say to while we're patting ourselves on the back for our own discernment, we'd pat each other, but we're too far away.
Social distancing.
Exactly. But that while we pat ourselves on the back, I would say that, to your point, I will fight without avail to my point if I believe in my point, but I will easily let go when I'm proven wrong on something. I will, of course, easily I do as well. Disengage. Yeah.
Look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's rare. JB gets me about once a quarter. No, and I admit that I'm wrong when I'm wrong. I truly do. You provide evidence and you show me that I'm wrong, or I provide my own evidence. Right. And I tell you that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It happens. I will admit it. But it's rare because when I have an opinion, it's normally formulated on way too much research that I should never have done in the first place.
Right.
Schools reopening. I read the 125-page document saying how schools should reopen. It was meant for school administrators. I read it. Why? See? Because I wanted to prove somebody wrong. And it was way too much information. But yeah, either way, I'm done. Are you done?
I'm ready to move on to topic number 2.
Alrighty. Cheers, my friend.
Shot number 2, topic number 2. All right. And salute.
Okay, so topic number 2 is contact tracing. I love the idea of contact tracing for COVID. Right. But you know what? I believe in what is the phrase that James Madison used? I don't remember one of them, but it was do not give up your freedoms for security.
Ben Franklin.
What was the phrase?
Quote. Yeah,
do you remember it?
Yeah, about it. Essentially, it was that. It was, don't be so eager for security that you give up your freedoms.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And I'm very much a fan of that. So the problem there is that you talk about contact tracing is very much that particular thing. It seems like you're giving up your basically your free, like your rights to privacy to go ahead and try to be better for the general public. And I like the idea behind it. I just don't want to be, I'm afraid to actually give it up. So the reason I bring that up is so Apple and Google, you may or may not have heard, back in May, or actually it was back in like April, they came up with a technical idea for contact tracing. And they came up with this interesting little tidbit, or this way to kind of do it in a joint fashion that was not going to impede your privacy.
Smoke it like we? Oh, sorry, no, that's a totally different type of joint.
No,
go ahead.
You're gonna get drug tested. Yeah, now you're gonna be drug tested
for the show. I didn't know I had to be clean for the show. No,
I'm like on like all sorts of drugs now because I blew up my arm. I don't think that'll go well for me.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Tune in next week to see who your new host will be. Apparently, we're drug testing hosts. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, folks. No, we're both gonna lose this one.
So anyway, so back to your joints.
So it was a joint venture between Apple and Google. They barely ever try to go ahead and do anything together. So they were like, all right, you know what? We're going to come up with a way to go ahead and do contact tracing that still covers everyone's privacy. And they came up with this. So they both released by early June. I think Google released late May, or Apple released late May, and the other one released early June. I don't remember which one. It doesn't really matter. But we've had it since then. Now, I know everyone in America is like, they have what now? Well, if you actually go...
No, but everyone should know, because wasn't there that random day where we all lost service for like 45 minutes to an hour? Did that not happen to you?
That has absolutely nothing to do with the contact tracing.
Are you sure that's not when... I'm genuinely, like, sincere, and I don't...
Yeah, that was when T-Mobile exploded. T-Mobile exploded. It had nothing to do with the contact tracing API.
But it wasn't only T-Mobile. I know for a fact that it was T-Mobile, and it was at least one other carrier. I don't want to name which one because I don't know for a fact which one it was.
So what happened
is... But I remember going online and seeing literally dozens of people that I knew, and then hundreds, if not thousands of people I didn't know, all posting at the same time about how their phone service just went out on, like I say, it was T-Mobile, and then there was one other server. And then
it was
within the next couple days, they said that was them putting the workaround to what you're talking about here, that COVID-19 Connect. And I went into my settings, and it was in there. And again, it doesn't bother me at all. But that is something that happened in order.
No, that was just timing. So if that was what had happened, look, if that was what had happened, it would have happened for both Apple, and it would have happened separately for Apple and Android. It didn't, because it's not an Apple or Android thing.
Yeah, it was server-based. It wasn't. You're right.
It wasn't server-based. What actually happened is there was a fiber cut. So somebody cut some fiber optic cables and cut a fiber backbone for their networks.
Interesting.
Actually, so we've had outage. So fiber cables get cut all the time. Most of the time, you're able to reroute. They ended up, the way that the fiber cable was cut, it rerouted through a very, very small network. So you tried to fit all of the data through a data that can only take this much. And of course, that completely doesn't work. It explodes. So
which is funny because it goes back to our first topic, which was the mainstream media. That's how it's being funneled. It's more data from the one side going into a finer tube.
Yes.
It does connect.
All right. So I'm going to completely continue past this. So it had nothing to do with that. So
keep going.
In any case, so it's in your phone. There's a settings for the new COVID stuff. Basically, you'll see that in the US it's disabled unless you're in Virginia, because Virginia released an app that finally utilizes this API. They released it, I think it was August 7th, August 2nd, somewhere.
Okay.
Early August. It was early August that they finally released it. They're the first ones that released it. This has been available in code since April and in practice since May. This is the first that they've released it. In any case, the whole idea is that contact tracing, we don't want people to know where I am constantly. I don't want somebody to be able to go, oh, well, this guy was over here and now he has COVID, so now I know where he's been. No, I don't want people to know that if I get COVID, I don't want people to know where I've been. I don't necessarily want to know where everyone else has been. I don't want to be able to be tracked. So in South Korea, the way that they're doing contact tracing is through CCTV cameras. They're doing it through credit card records. They're doing it through just basically all sorts of things. Cell phone tower
They're
pings.
literally tracking their citizens.
They're tracking an individual user across. Yeah. I am not a fan of that. I am completely against that, because I believe that data will be misused. And maybe this makes me a crazy conspiracy theorist. I don't really care. That's my take. I don't like that. So that's where Apple and Google's API is pretty cool. So the way Apple and Google's API works is that your phone has a MAC address, which basically identifies it on its chip. Everyone's MAC address is a unique identifier. It's how it communicates with other people. Apple and Google, since they realized it's unique, have started doing this thing where they spoof it. They constantly change it. They say, oh, yeah, my MAC address is this at the moment, but then 5 minutes later, when they go talk to the next tower, they change their MAC address. So your phone is constantly changing its MAC address.
Okay.
Which is cool, but that's a limited thing. It's a very small number of things.
How is it traced if it's changing?
It's not. So this is just the beginning. So they're changing their MAC addresses constantly.
That's happening now, irregardless. And I know that's
correct,
not a word,
because people used to be able to. So Disney is one of them. You know how they implemented Wi-Fi networks?
Yep.
They used to track your Wi-Fi MAC address, even if it doesn't connect to the network. Your still MAC address pops out and says, "Hey, I'm 1234, and I'm saying, hey, are there any networks out there?" And that's what it does. And so they started tracing 1234 through the parks and been able to determine the volume of people in the parks and where the person's going.
And stuff. Yeah,
creepy as hell. So Google and Apple were like, no, we're randomizing that now. And so the reason I bring this up is because it's similar to the way that the new contact tracing works. So the contact tracing API actually utilizes Bluetooth low energy. All you need to know is it doesn't drain your battery and it uses Bluetooth.
Do you have to have your Bluetooth turned on for it or no?
You do actually have to have your Bluetooth turned on.
So on the battery thing, because we're going to get this in the comments if we get comments on this, as far as just having my Bluetooth on does drain my battery more than not having my Bluetooth on. Okay, fair enough.
It doesn't do much. I mean, if you actually look at the numbers,
it feels like more, but...
It does, and this is called the placebo effect.
You know what? I'll also tell you...
It's a bias effect. If you actually do the full tests, Bluetooth battery drain is maybe 5% of your battery.
Fair enough.
Especially in low turn and LTE. Now, if you're connected to Bluetooth devices, that's a whole separate beast.
Right. No, that's fair. But I just feel like in general, I got to a point where I'd always turn my Bluetooth off when I wasn't using it for a device because it would seem like my battery would die by the end of not even the day. That would be the whole point. What would normally last me a day would last me half a day.
No, it doesn't actually do that bad. So
fair enough. Okay. So you're saying, one, I was wrong about that. So
yes,
true to the show.
Yeah, exactly. It's low energy. It's Bluetooth low energy. So it really uses very minimal energy. And so the thing there is that you suddenly have, so it uses this small light protocol. And so again, your MAC address is randomized in this. And basically, anytime you're inside of another a network where there's another Bluetooth device, you both can see each other. Just by default of being in the same area, you know, when I say something out on Bluetooth, just like when I yell something out in English, somebody else who knows English can hear it and go, "Oh, hey, I got this thing from English. Like, this is an English thing."
Right.
So they created this thing using that. And so they shout. So your phone shouts where it is all the time. And it basically says, hey, I'm out here. But the cool part is every 10 minutes, your phone changes its name. So, and again, your phone's MAC address is changing. So as far as everyone else is concerned, it's just a black silhouette. So there's no way you can identify who the person is from the MAC address. So only your phone
knows that Bill and Todd are the same person.
Well, so yeah. So what happens is not only that, so everyone else who looks at your phone, because you still can see the person yelling normally, but the person yelling is a black figurine. There is no identifier on it. And then the black figurine goes,
"Why are they black, Zach? Systemic racism?"
It is systemic racism. No, so it's a colorless. Colorless figurine. It's a colorless figurine, and it basically that's because the MAC address changes.
So up.
Its unique physical identifiers are not relevant. You can't actually. It changes constantly. So what it does is your phone goes, "Hey, I'm Bill" for the next 10 minutes, and it goes, "Hey, I'm Bill. Hey, I'm Bill," and it just says, "Hey, I'm Bill" every once in a blue moon, and other phones hear, "Hey, I'm Bill," and it can tell how far away it is from Bill from that distance. But every 10 minutes it changes. So it was Bill, and then 10 minutes later, it's now Sally. And then 10 minutes later, it's Jerry. And now here's the cool part. So
that's what I was going to ask. Okay. I think you're going to answer what I was about to ask.
Correct. So the person's whose phone... So say I received all those yells. I heard Jerry, I heard Bill, I heard Larry, I heard Sally, I heard all these different ones. Oh, you're back on your Yangling. There you go. So I heard all these different names. I write down the time that I heard that name, and I write down the name that I heard. And when I heard
you individually, or is your phone doing this for you if you have it turned on?
Well, it depends. If you have it set to go ahead and scribe mode, those logs are going to be yelled at you and you have to write them down. No, of course. Your phone does this for you. Your phone does this for you.
I was taking you so seriously, too, until I'm like, wait, what?
No. You're just drunk. Your phone writes it down for you and it's logs. And so it knows, hey, I heard about Jill on at this time, and I heard Larry at this time. I heard all these. Doesn't matter. It's not. This isn't correct. It's actually a cryptographically secure number based on your phone. That's a globally unique identifier. Long story short, it's a really, 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 really long string that is globally unique, and you can't generate the same number twice. I mean, there's a chance you can, but you have a likelier chance of winning the lottery 500 times than joining the same number.
Okay, but so it's not gonna happen. But in case I get to my 501st lottery win, I just want to know, what happens if it does register the same name twice? Does it even matter?
No, it only would matter if. So it would only matter if what happens next happens. And so you know all the people you've ever seen and the times you saw them.
I don't. That's my memory.
Your phone does. No. Your phone does.
Actually, my memory is really good. That's a lie.
You failed the cognitive test. You failed the cognitive test. We already established this. So your phone remembers everyone that it saw at any given time. And then, so what happens is the other person's phone, say the other person gets COVID. Well, they go, oh shit, I got COVID. Well, I got it on this date, and they plug it into their phone. Their phone then uploads the list of names and dates that it used. So it'll say, I was Jill on, August 15th at 12 o'clock p.m. I was this. Actually, it doesn't even... So the cool part about it, actually, this is kind of the really neat part, is it doesn't actually need to show the times.
Oh, okay.
It only needs to show the date. So it doesn't actually need to have the times when it was changing names because of the way that the numbers are generated. So it only gives the number and the date, so even though it's changed every 10 minutes.
Anyone you cross paths with that day may be the person, but someone you cross paths with that day tested positive.
Well, no, what it is that Jill, nobody else will use Jill that day except for your phone. Because of the way that it's generating the numbers. So only your phone could possibly be Jill that day, but nobody else could know that. It's a cryptographically secure, long story short.
No, but we said the same thing in different ways.
Cool.
We did. Because that's what I was saying is basically that your phone knows who it was, but the person, if you tested positive, the person who gets signified that you tested positive doesn't know it was you because they don't know your name because it's a fake name, and they don't know what time the person that day they interacted with. Only you know that. That's what I was getting at.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And when I say names, they're actually, again, really long strings
numbers,
that don't represent.
Right.
Strings and numbers, what doesn't matter. But basically, that's the cool part about it. And it is completely privacy oriented. Again, Virginia is the only state that implemented this. It's not hard to implement. Multiple countries have already released their code to their contact tracing apps for free, open source. Said, please, other countries use this. Virginia finally implemented it. I think it cost them like $600,000, but it shouldn't have because it's really cheap to do. And I still bet almost nobody in Virginia is using it. But you know what? Whatever. We don't do contact tracing here in the US, but this is the correct way to do it. And again, there is a major downfall here, though, because like I said, I don't want to trade my security for my rights. And my privacy for my rights. So what ends up happening is it requires the person who gets COVID to be honest and to go ahead and click in the app that got COVID. And it requires some sort of trust, unfortunately. Yeah. But again, the alternative is to be tracked to the smallest degree. And that's a little terrifying for me.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 1,000%, right? Like, obviously, our political leanings generally would indicate that you would be more okay with some level of... No, I know you're not. No. That's not an insult to you. I just mean where we fall. the implication of where we fall would be that you'd find a way to be more comfortable with that if it led to the greater good than I would, being that I am generally the smaller government deregulation ideal type of person. My
For
point
me,
with that being,
privacy is always 100%. That's the thing.
fair enough. No,
Even
that's a good
with-
thing. That's a good thing. But my point is this, is that it's just tough. It's just tough, going back to our first subject, as far as people have become so warped all over the map from all different angles in what they believe and what they think about things. And they are so convinced of it that it's just so much harder, it seems, than it used to be to convince the overwhelming majority of people, like, hey, we really need to do X because it will lead to Y. Because there's always going to be that person, for whatever motivation they have, whether it's genuine, disingenuous, whatever it is, that's going to say, no. What's actually happening is V is trying to convince you that X will get you to Y, but really it's a plot from C. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. That's why I wanted to bring this one up, because it is such a cool implementation that they created. It is such a cool setup. It is so privacy oriented, and you know what, even if you get COVID and you don't want to share, which makes you an asshole,
we'll clean that up in the editing room. What he meant to say was, even if you're a terrible person, go on.
Yes. But it's just even if that's what you want, you have the right to do that.
Right. But
like you have the right to not share that information. Whatever. I'm done with this topic. I think.
I'll be honest with you. I'll leave it on this then, and then we can wrap up the last topic, last show, and take our last shot. I'll be honest with you that as long as it couldn't be traced backwards to the person it was traced from,
correct,
I actually would be fine with the invasion of privacy, with it being exposed forward. Like you said, like they wouldn't
it's
tell
not
you
physically possible to do that. That's the problem.
Well, that's fine. I'm not saying it could be done, but I'm saying that is what I would be working on. And even with my ideals, that is where I would fall, in that I wouldn't want anything that, without question, would lead back to someone being able to call Zach and saying, I know you gave me COVID on this day because you tested positive and you didn't tell me, screw you. But I would be fine, even if every once in a while it led to, oh, I got it on Friday, June 12th. I only saw one person on Friday, June 12th. I would be fine with that happening on the margins if there was a way that the majority of times when you found out someone you crossed paths with on Friday, June 12th, it's probably not even a Friday, by the way. I didn't look into that date at all. They tested positive, because the majority of the time you're going to see at least a handful of people on any day that you saw anyone. The majority of the time.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, whatever.
Okay that level of quote unquote invasion of privacy, because again, it's not specifically pointing to a person. Yes, there would be some very small marginal fallout from that, but I don't think it matters in relative form to what that level of invasion of privacy could lead to on the good side. I really do.
Agreed.
I'm sorry if I upset anyone. So before I share what our third conversation, I'll barely call it a topic, but a couple things I wanted to share with you. Let's take this last shot. Salute.
Cheers, bud. Oh, gosh. That one hit the back of my throat.
Actually, the shot went down pretty smooth.
Oh, good. As you say, with your eyebrows crossing in a whole different way. All right, so what are we talking about for the last bit?
The bottom half of my face can't convince the top half of my face, but
exactly.
I actually just wanted to, so as the more conservative-minded person in the show, I don't know where I fall anymore in that, obviously, as we've seen over these two episodes.
Well, I mean, obviously, we've seen over the past year, you went from a Republican to a Democrat in terms of your political leaning, in terms of your political party affiliation, which I only know because I get all of the updates.
That's a
as
different
creepy as that is.
For a different. Wait, why do you get all the? Okay, we don't need to get into it. But what I was gonna say is that generally speaking, I believe big government is bad, and what I mean by that is,
sure.
I believe that the larger the government control is, first of all, that's bad. And you kind of alluded to that. You don't like to be tracked and things like that. Like, you don't want to give up those freedoms. So, you know, you have that side too. But also, even the way they implement programs. Going back to my facts or relative point, as far as what could happen from something and what the facts tell you should happen may not be the outcome based on government involvement, based on the implementation and all. And I feel like more often than not, they fail. That being said, during this pandemic, they have come through in a handful of ways that I think we should discuss here, that I think are really important. Okay. So first of all, I want to talk about New York City's health department. They jumped right into this thing, man. I got to tell you.
Oh, yeah?
And this brings us way back. I think it might have been the first topic, if not the second topic. If you're not watching the whole show, you should be watching the whole show to know that, first of all, the New York City Health Department did officially advocate for the safety of glory holes. Not the time to leave me, Zach. No, New York Health Department wants you to go to a glory hole. On top of that, though, they don't actually want you to go to a glory hole. They're just saying if you need to go be sexual with someone that you're not married to or living with, that the barrier is safer, so you might as well, again, glory hole.
Wait, I need more details. Excuse me. Come at me. Wait, what?
If you need more details, I think you just want to search on, you want to take off all the not safe for work filters.
No, I know what a glory hole is. Thank you very much. Okay. Woo, I am very well acquainted. Wait, no, hold on.
How well? No, don't tell me.
But
no, so that was official recommendations during the early stages of this. It's been at least 2 months since they came out and they said, hey, as times change, so do our guidelines. Here's some new, sexual health guidelines. And the first one was having a barrier between you and a sexual partner that you are not with on a regular basis is a safer way to engage in sexual activity. And then earlier, when I said something about screwing yourself, I didn't tell you to go screw yourself, but I was saying, like, you ended up screwed. They did say the safest form of sex right now is self-sex. So they are officially, for all those conservative Christians that feel like...
So they're about mutual masturbation.
I mean, mutual is only, if possible. Like, they're just saying, hey, just take care of your own thing. And they did mention virtual sex as well. It's literally in the guidelines. Right. New York City Health Code
mutual
guidelines.
Masturbation.
Yep. They want you to cover that. Another one was our Parks Department. Now, this is national. This is across the United States of America. They did go ahead and bring forth a new guideline, which I think is pretty controversial, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So, if you were out camping in the woods, and let's say you're cooking up some hot dogs and s'mores, and some bears came to find you. I actually had this happen to me once. We weren't cooking, though. We were inside our tent with a very large dog who would not stop barking at the bears, and we were getting really freaked out, but here I am, so it all turned out okay. We kept telling them, stop barking, because they were out around our campsite. But anyways, my point with that was, if that were to happen to you and the bears were to start attacking, what is the number one strategy to get away from a bear when you're at a campsite with a bunch of people?
Outrun Jared Blake.
Outrun the slowest person, usually me. Outrun the slowest person, absolutely. They have officially asked within the Parks Department guidelines that you no longer sacrifice the slowest person in your party to
you lucky motherfucker.
I mean, it's just guidelines. I guess you can do whatever you want, but
I'm just saying, you lucky person, you.
Yeah.
Because literally it's like, outrun the slowest person. But actually, I prefer to go ahead and just kick the person I'm claiming is the slowest person. Just knock them down. And
that's the thing, right? I don't know what you're lying for. You don't leave the slowest person. You pick your least favorite person, shove them to the ground, and then run away.
Exactly. Well, as long as that person isn't really, really fast. I've got some friends who, even if I shove them to the ground, they're still going to beat
bounce
me.
Back.
They don't count.
But based on the information you've given our audience, not me, in case anyone was wondering.
No. JB's on the top of my list of people to not... Wait, no, I love you, JB. You're irreplaceable.
Thanks. I like to think so. But yeah, no, that's all I had for you on the third topic. It just was kind of rolling across.
Those are kind of amazing, stories.
Government ordinances. Yeah, no, the government literally came out and said, hey, glory holes are good.
Don't go ahead and throw your friends under the bus, effectively.
Under the bear.
Don't throw your friends under the bear. The bus is still okay.
The bus is fine. They don't have any guidelines for that. Yeah.
We'll see if the transportation department comes out with something in the future.
This is 2 episodes in a row where we mentioned a transportation department. Apparently, we should have rethought the theme of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Zach, how's that beer going for you?
I'm at the last quarter of my 3rd beer.
I think it's a good time to kind of wrap up. Any other thoughts for the week? Anything you want
to... Don't use 2 gallons of gasoline to light a brush fire.
Did you want to show that off? I know it's not quite as beautiful as it was when it first happened.
I mean, it is still pretty beautiful. Don't use 2 gallons of gasoline. Here you go. A little bit better for our audience.
Oh, wow.
Don't use 2 gallons of gasoline to light a brush fire. And also don't listen to your parents who tell you to use 2 gallons of gasoline.
Parents don't understand. They also don't know how to safely light a brush fire. Good to know.
Yep, done.
I think on that, I'm gonna wrap up this beer. I think maybe I'll wrap up this show. Zach, any other thoughts? Any other things to leave them with?
I'm pretty good. I mean,
check us out
do exactly
alcoholicallycorrect.com. Follow us at
www.alcoholicallycorrect.com.
That is true. The www is very important for whatever reason. So www.alcoholicallycorrect.com. You can also find us on any social media site, just about. And by any, I mean any that a 35-plus-year-old person would be into. I'm only 33. Which would be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Alcoholically Correct. Alcohol's Correct on Twitter. And if not, just tune in on
What's
YouTube.
On Instagram?
To our YouTube channel. Instagram, it's Alcoholically Correct. At Alcoholically Correct. Please follow us. Yeah. No, we're going to keep bringing you guys content. We will. I know these shows run a little bit long, so we'll be segmenting these up as well. You'll get your chance to take out little chunks of these.
If you shut up in the next 10 seconds, we got 1 hour and 30 minutes.
I think that's a good episode time. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Alcoholically Correct. Cheers.